Greetings and thank you for joining us at Rumbo Minero. I am Cesar Campos along with Miguel Zavala, and we will be your hosts for today. How are you, Miguel? What do you think of the show?
Cesar, nice to meet you.
It has been a whirlwind of a week with the political crisis on the horizon as a result of the turmoil he has found himself embroiled in. The head of the Peruvian state acting as president of Congress, José Gonzáles, who might put the prospects at risk and in danger. Economic ones, and even the impulses this transitional government has given to restructure, for example, the case of Petroperú and part of the formalization scheme, because it has been a week in which the departure was determined of Mr. Wilfredo Portilla of the direction of mining formalization.
That's right, Cesar. Well, the appointment itself was already questionable, right? A person with 2 cancelled reinsurances already, right? Who belonged to that group of 50,000 excluded reinforcements. Well, I can't comprehend the ministry's ability to terminate someone's
Minister
employment.
Bravo stated that they had already expired, and that was back in the year 2019, if you recall. If they had already expired, I couldn't be among the 50,000 who were excluded, but that's a point of view. But we are going to discuss these matters, Miguel, with 2 truly important guests. One is Luis Miguel Castilla, former Minister of Economy and Finance and Director of Videnza Institute. With him, we are going to have a conversation about whether or not this current political situation is having any effect whatsoever on the outlook for economic growth.
Cesar Wright and engineer Carlos Herrera Descalzi, who previously served as Energy and Mines Minister, are expected to be present at this location, with whom we will also discuss the topic of this projection that Minim has given regarding the portfolio of mining projects for this year, amounting to more than $7 billion, and the moves that are also inside the Minim with these changes.
Okay, we're pleased to introduce our esteemed luxury guests. Stay tuned for the report brought to you by the Rumbo Minero press team. Thank you and enjoy.
The Central Reserve Bank of Peru projects that the Peruvian economy would grow by 3% in 2026, which represents a slight upward revision in line with a better international environment and greater private spending dynamism. This growth would be sustained mainly by domestic demand, which would expand by around 3.5%, driven by consumption and private investment, which would show greater dynamism with a projected growth of 5%, thanks to the continuity of various projects, including those in the mining sector. A similar estimate is managed by the Ministry of Economy and Finance, which projects an average growth of 3.2% for the period 2026 to 2031. However, these positive figures are not reflected in Petroperú's situation. Facing debts exceeding $5 billion and carrying structural losses since 2022, aggravated by operational limitations at the new Talara refinery and by excessive spending on employee benefits. Nevertheless, the Ministry of Energy and Mines indicated, as part of Petroperú's restructuring process, the oil company's key assets will be safeguarded in trusts to maintain state ownership and prevent any possibility of them being transferred to private ownership, ensuring their protection from external influences.
As usual, the report put together by the press team at Rumbo Minero is quite intriguing. We are delighted to confirm that we now have available at our premises for viewing, as previously mentioned. To Dr. Luis Miguel Castilla, former Minister of Economy and Finance and Director of Videnza Institute, to address the prevailing political tension that cannot be easily ignored or dismissed. Furthermore, the economic growth forecasts issued prior to the scandal involving President José Gonzáles remain relevant and uncertain. The feedback has generally been quite encouraging. Luis, it's a pleasure to greet you, to welcome you here as always.
Greetings, Cesar. I'm delighted to be here with you.
We wanted you who have been Minister of State, to develop for us an economic political vision of this moment we are discussing. Will there really be an impact on Peru's economic expectations, something that had more or less positive projections, even though back in November there was a slowdown in GDP growth has been identified, contributing to the uncertainty caused by China's involvement in various troubles which are further clouding the economic climate? President Jerry participates in the situation.
Look, I honestly don't think this will escalate further, because if you look at when Dina Boluarte unexpectedly fell and was replaced by Herri, and you see the country risk, observing the bag and the exchange rate, everything appeared stagnant. The previous year concluded with a very positive outcome. The latest expectation the central bank has published shows all indicators in the blue zone. An economy growing double digits, private investment growing double digits. So
The confidence, forgive me, from the surveys conducted by the National Assembly of Industry, which state they will acquire capital goods, etc.
That's right, that doesn't match up. One, with a pre-election year, we are already months away from the election. It seems that the issue with this process has normalized and capital is still being invested. And so, for that reason, I would lean towards thinking that this is going to have, should it conclude with an outcome involving President Jerry stepping down and someone taking his place, to respect the constitutional rules, I don't think it will go much further. I believe that, unfortunately, our business community has gotten used to and normalized having to live in a state of constant uncertainty, and it seems that it doesn't affect them. But obviously, the image we project outward is a different one. From an external perspective, the nation appears to be in complete chaos, characterized by the inability to support a leader, with every person involved in these deceptive practices. In the long run, all of this ultimately degrades the institutional structure of the nation and the extremely significant role held by the office of the President of the Republic.
But to close the loop a bit on what I asked you about, what's happening with Petroperú's restructuring initiative? All of those various initiatives that the administration has implemented in order to shore up some crucial aspects within a brief time frame.
Unless, for instance, she is substituted by an individual who, let's imagine within the Congress, in a purely hypothetical and speculative setting, for someone from the left wing to come in and manage both the Congress and the executive branch, something that I consider quite improbable. The sole risk lies in efforts being sidelined, which could be the only drawback in this scenario, for introducing private capital into Petroperú and sanitizing the situation. Hopefully the company. That is the only scenario I see, let's say, that this might happen.
Luis Miguel, continuing with the Petroperú topic, well, we all know about the measures that have been taken. The government, but there are some disagreements there, and there are even differing views on what exactly needs to be accomplished with the future of Petroperú. The union issue also comes into play, which is announcing a strike, the payment owed to the suppliers, which is millions of souls. How do you see the company's future, right? If it were taken over by private interests? If in the end, it would be possible to get out of this debacle that the state institution is having?
Look, I don't think anyone is proposing that the entire company should pass into private hands, but rather that certain assets and certain equity blocks, and they should go into private hands so that the value of the assets that Petroperú still possesses is preserved, let's say. We are uncertain about that at the moment. Proinversión is expected to reveal the roadmap in due course. It is understood that the refinery will be located within a single, visible, let's say, cohesive asset block. But I think this one thing, this will help, hopefully, so that they can once again gain access to financing in the first instance, which is the purpose. Just earlier today, I came across an article in a recent newspaper discussing the assessment conducted by an investment bank concerning the necessity to keep relying on public assurances. Something that clashes with not giving it more resources, this right here, to company. He has extremely significant obligations to meet, not just with his creditors, but, as you correctly pointed out, with an entire supply chain whose sole purchaser happens to be Petroperú. A series of companies that have reported debts that have been accumulating, according to the Minister of Economy herself. Debts that already amount to 2,500,000,000 souls, added to the financial debt that the company has. The current situation is rather complex, as I believe the message has been understood. However, we still need clarification on the detailed plan and the specific assets that will be utilized to kick off the process. And hopefully they advance in such a way that there is continuity and the next government doesn't come to review things again, leaving the company in limbo once more. It has been, since the announcement of the emergency decree and its publication, a number of things have occurred, haven't they? There was an attempted resignation by the general manager, and the unions have voiced their strong disapproval of this situation. I firmly believe that it is crucial for the government, as well as governments worldwide, to address the escalating issue that has spiraled out of control. And the labor issue and the union issue is an important one, and obviously we must not underestimate Piura's reaction. Piura is a region, let's say, where Petroperú and its refineries stand out as emblematic, and there is probably a great deal of political pressure being exerted. So in this sea, going back to Cesar's previous question, in this sea of much uncertainty and crisis, hopefully the government does not decide to backtrack or trade their survival in exchange for retracting what they have decided, which is effectively to take the bull by the horns once and for all. change the structure of governance of this company, and hopefully attract private capital.
The issue isn't that Luis Miguel is suddenly stepping back of his own accord, but rather, as you rightly pointed out, the pressure from society causing an explosion of consequences based on the political crisis provide the unions with flags to raise awareness about this issue and put a stop to it. And recalling something that you have just mentioned, it is the head of the Ministry of Economy and Finance, Dr. Denise Miralles, who is currently taking the leadership role, not the Minister of Energy and Mines. It is connected in that particular area.
Who in fact presides over the shareholders' meeting.
Shareholders'
who
inquiry
happens to
with
be the
22
Minister
characters.
of Energy and Mines.
No, nor the new incumbent, who is a distinguished professional. I have taken care of thoroughly verify her resume, and it seems she is more focused on the fine print of the decree as an emergency. I reiterate the perspective of how politically can we sustain the restructuring's progress.
Well, I am under the impression that there is a general agreement, as I've been examining the proposed policies of numerous individuals vying for the positions of presidency and Senate among the candidates running for the Senate. And I think there is an awareness that you cannot keep feeding an insolvent company ad infinitum, and this reduces, let's say, the fiscal margin for maneuver for the next government in whatever it wants to do in the 5 years. So I think there is an awareness that this needs to be done, and an intelligent government that comes. I would prefer that the outgoing transitional government take on all the blame, all the liability, and the political cost, and that he takes on the difficult decisions and leaves the way completely paved for him to finally execute a plan. The thing is that some people also question, and I have spoken with a couple of politicians who question it, that there is no legitimacy as a transition government to make significant decisions regarding the company. But I think I would be more in favor of hopefully a law even being approved to shield this effort, to give it greater, let's say, legal strength, and to ensure there are no setbacks. Yes, setbacks from political pressure. Or if this is set aside, we would be multiplying the problem, and that situation could even compromise the country's credit rating eventually in the face of a problem that is already, They have, let's say, identified a light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully the politicians won't block it. I strongly believe that we should wholeheartedly back the Ministry of Economy for its proactive actions. It's a rare instance of taking decisive steps, and I emphasize the need to support it wholeheartedly. To face a problem of this magnitude.
Finally, Luis Miguel, a short question. These movements that are occurring within the Ministry of Energy and Mines, you see, concerning the designation of an individual, it could be called questionable regarding the topic of the direction, about the handling of the formalization direction, of mining, well, he has been dismissed in recent days. What is the deal with the bizarre activities taking place within MINEM?
It worries me that all this is happening amidst the problems Jerry is facing. Because it hasn't just been the director who has been questioned, it has also been the head of INPI. Both figures questioned. Under pressure, certain behaviors emerge, with the underlying message being, I am currently composed, so please refrain from stripping me of my authority. I believe a bad precedent has been the distribution of certain sectors to political groups. Evidently, that is the case for energy and mines, not just with Jerry. This started with Castillo. And that, in such a transcendental ministry as energy and mines, it really does not favor the country, which is currently strengthening its investment portfolio and which must confront a problem that is still on standby, which is the formalization of the MAPE. We still have a deadline. So by next year, let's say the new deadline is already running. And I believe that if there is no progress, there will again be political pressure, and it is a bad way for a new government to start its term inheriting these liabilities, let's say. Not much effort is being put into this issue, causing a lot of commotion. This noise and this meddling by the Ministry of Energy and Mines is not helping.
Luis Miguel, it is always a delight to have you join us. Shall we carry on with our conversation in the upcoming weeks regarding this matter? Additionally, we don't know how the political crisis will be resolved, but as you rightly say, there are fundamentals and aspects that we still need to analyze. Thank you very much for being with us. Luis Miguel Castilla, ex-Minister of Economy and Finance, Director of Videnza Institute, was here. Short break, then we continue. At the International American Mining Block, as always, we introduce José Gonzáles. Thank you for always being a part of our events. Not from Wall Street, New York, but here, present in the Rumbo Minero studios. How are you, José?
Thank you. It was my pleasure to assist.
Tell us about this. What will be the implications for the mining market if Glencore and Rio Tinto proceed with their renewed talks and transactions towards a possible merger?
Both of those companies had initiated discussions about merging together about 1 year prior, but they ultimately dropped those talks because they couldn't reach a consensus regarding the specific terms of the valuation and what to do with the different divisions of the companies, and also who was going to be the CEO of the merged company. However, the Financial Times reveals that the conversations have resumed and both companies acknowledge it. Evidently, the manifest intention of both companies is a repeat performance once more. Responding to the merger between Anglo-American and Teck Resources, both of which operate in the copper industry, the market reacted with interest in copper. Regarding what sort of corporate actions they were planning to undertake after BHP and Rio Tinto, two of the world's biggest mining corporations were departing. If both companies were to merge, they haven't said it's yet, as they say in English, a done deal, that the transaction is going to close. The largest mining company in the world would be created with a value of $260 billion. The leading company in the merger, Rio Tinto, is valued at $162 billion and is the larger of the two companies involved. Dollars. When the merger is announced, Glencore is up 8.8% and Rio Tinto is down 2 points. 4% in terms of its stock value, which is usual in these transactions. The acquired company goes up, the acquiring company's shares drop because it will have to pay. The discussion that follows depends on whether the merger is consolidated, is what to do with Glencore's assets that are not related to copper. Glencore is the publicly listed coal production company, largest in the world and is not necessarily a unit within the business. For Rio Tinto will need to make their offer official by February 5th in accordance with the regulations set by the UK authorities. For it to proceed, for the process to move to the next stage. To extract copper today, it's crucial to highlight our previous analysis. Emphasizing what we've learned in the past is essential for mining operations. Critical masses and large dimensions. A new one is being created. A new mega mining company focused on copper is being created. Good news once again for Peru.
Hey Jose, they are still discussing the topic of Venezuela, and we would now like to talk about the mining potential that this country has. How do you see the mining issue in Venezuela in the short and medium term?
The actions of President Trump's administration, both the events of January 3rd and the subsequent developments, have placed a strong emphasis on oil. Nevertheless, it is important to note that Venezuela also holds great mining potential in terms of copper and nickel, silver and aluminum, and there is much speculation about what Venezuela's mining potential would be moving forward. Mining operations in Venezuela face significant challenges. The lack of transparency in geology, deteriorating infrastructure, and unhelpful laws create serious problems for the industry. The arbitration processes against the Republic of Venezuela in the United States that are leading to the auction of Citgo, of Venezuela's refining complex in the United States, involve the expropriation of a gold mine. And the projects that were underway are all stopped. There are no laws, there is no infrastructure. Even though Peru deals with illegal mining, in Venezuela, mining is considered a criminal activity. As a result, the mining process in Venezuela, while showing potential, is tainted. It's going to take many years to be developed.
Jose, as always, thank you very much for being with us. We look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks. Jose Gonzáles, international editor of Rumbo Minero magazine. Access our content for free on the internet at www. Enjoy unlimited usage without any charges. rumbominero.com. All the information regarding the interviews, comments, and discussions taking place here, accompanied by the valuable perspective of Jose Gonzáles, may be found within these walls. Can be found in this magazine and other topics as well. If you are a supplier, don't forget to advertise in Rumbo Minero magazine, which is the leader in this sector. We take a break and we'll be back. The latest announcement confirms that engineer Carlos Herrera Descalzi will be taking on the role of leading the Ministry of Energy and Mines for a second term. It says, everything is already set up in our studios. We're pleased to have you with us, engineer Herrera Descalzi.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to visit you. Thank you very much for the invitation.
The context, which is very political this week with the presidential level crisis. There has also been a development in the energy and mining industry that has led to a specific situation. New headline. Mr. Bravo, Engineer Bravo, has decided to dismiss the former Director of Mining Formalization, Wilfredo Portilla Barrera. How do you take this decision?
That he had no other alternative because the actions of government officials, specifically ministers in this instance, cannot be isolated from the political context, let's say, and the political context was very difficult. So the interview with the Prime Minister had occurred, right? And the Prime Minister's interview left others with the impression that he had not personally chosen or recommended the ministers, you see? Not all of the ministers, at least not those within that specific sector, even that he admitted, considering the political situation and the fact that authority rested with the Crown, which derived its mandate from Parliament, he felt that it was acceptable, that a congressman could recommend the minister. Isn't that right? My reading of the facts is that the ministry parceled it out to milk the cow during those 6 months.
Politically, you say?
Yes, politically, of course, true, but the interests are economic and they are economic. To take advantage of the circumstances. There is no national vision on this matter. And within these terms, several events had occurred. For me, it was already notable that in the first week, all the directories were changed. When a government arrives, it arrives unexpectedly. 2 days before, nobody knew there would be a change of government and a new government arrives. One has to find out what the institutions are like. It takes time to form a team, gather people, get to know them, find out what the situation is. And after one finds out, one makes adjustments, but not suddenly. I wasn't a fan of the rushed plan. It seemed too hurried from where I was standing. Regarding Petroperú, for example, there were two different positions. The MEF went after Petroperú. Apparently, I never consulted the Ministry of Energy and Mines at any time. At a certain moment, the Ministry of Energy and Mines issued a response which compelled the general manager of Petroperú to finally state, okay, I'm leaving. All of this is the context that has surrounded the ministry. It leaves a very clear idea of improvisation, and within that context, they put the cat in charge of the pantry, correct? This is directed towards a man interested in reinformation. And he continues to possess it because at one point, there was interest in having those 50,000 people who were excluded make a return. So you are unable to assign him to administer that particular matter. And then there is the other topic. Ingemet is a very technical subject. In order to work at Ingemet, you are required to possess a high level of expertise along with a robust academic foundation. Ideally, a master's degree or even a doctorate is strongly recommended for consideration. So what happens, I've been looking at the Ministry of Energy and Mines for a long time, right from its beginnings. Always the Ministry of Energy and Mines. Now, the initial 15 years of this current century, it always had technical leadership. There were always qualified people. There was always qualified staff. Today, it's as if those requirements since President Castillo's arrival, it is evident that 38 characters no longer existed. They would put just anyone there. To be blunt, the level is exceptionally low. And that is the cause of the problems Peru is facing. This century, with the issue of energy transition and the need for new minerals for that energy transition, Peru receives a double rating. Due to Peru's abundant renewable energy resources and mineral wealth, it has the necessary assets to greatly benefit from environmentally friendly initiatives and profit significantly. And yet, Peru has not taken advantage of that. Who is investing in Peru? People who come occasionally look around, people from neighboring countries. Peru does not take advantage. It has no rules on the matter because for a long time, the Ministry of Energy and Mines has been adrift, right? It's, let's say, on autopilot. This is also a consequence of that decade starting in 2016, where we lost in the executive power that could have completed its 5-year term. So if we have 7, 8, 9 presidents in 10 years, how many ministers are we going to have? 4 ministers for each president. Thus, these are brief intervals. It is prohibited to create a lasting presence or engage in activities in those fleeting moments. Even those who know a lot still have to learn when they arrive. Thus, a time is allotted for acquiring knowledge and a production window. Before the second starts, it interrupts the first. That's the situation. That's the big frame, right?
Engineer, I have two questions. The first one, a few days ago, the MINEM announced there were a total of 8 mining projects this year, all of which were valued at over 7,600 million, which emphasized the Colquijirca replacement, the Huaron expansion, the San Rafael replacement, Corani, and the Zafranal projects. Other projects. Do you believe the conditions are right, social, political, and technical means, so that these projects can move forward? Because if it materializes, it would be everything. It was an incredible, record-breaking run, wasn't it? We've always managed to come close. Investment in mining is expected to range from $5 billion to $6 billion. Reaching over 7,000 would be perfect. This is truly a major event for the mining industry. Furthermore, my second question concerns the digital single window system, which has reappeared once more. Made headlines as the Deputy Minister has announced the topic of cooperation with the bank, the World Bank, which had actually been announced some time ago, a long time ago, though subsequently disregarded due to circumstances, about this mining formalization issue and other problems facing the sector. How do you see these two issues?
Right. The first topic, in the same relationship you just mentioned, many are replacements, expansions, renewals. That is, they are investments that are already, that they reach a point where they necessarily have to make the investment. Despite the circumstances, it's not that the circumstances are leading them to make the investment, but when you reach a certain point, you are necessarily already in the right place. The progress of international conditions must continue to advance as they are currently very favorable, correct? And so, that is precisely what is currently taking place. We don't have the conditions for political stability. The message of bringing order to the sector isn't there because the reinfo keeps extending. What one perceives is a country where the authorities seem more committed to ensuring that the reinflation is eternally a transitional situation that never arrives. Its end, and that protects informality in small-scale mining. Instead of achieving what should be the goal in small-scale mining, right? Small-scale mining would be a great source of employment, which can be formal under the current economic conditions, can be stable, and can be profitable, can't it? Additionally, it is important to contribute to social security and all the necessary contributions that come from individuals who are employed in formal sectors. This should be our ultimate priority. No, what they want is informality, and to spread informality. So that doesn't help investment in large-scale mining because there comes a time. There is 30% of this informality that occurs in concessions granted to large-scale mining, right? So the social aspect of that situation, I believe that with the passage of time, this nation has gradually come to understand that we are fundamentally a mining nation. And that saying we are a mining country means we live off mining. It is a fact that the income we receive, be it directly, indirectly, or even 3 steps removed, ultimately traces back to the mining industry. Thus, mining plays a crucial role in sustaining our livelihoods. The well-being of mining means the well-being of Peruvians, even if they are not direct employees of a mining company. If mining fares poorly, it means the country is going through difficult times. I believe that has improved. Missing. To involve it within the social aspect, to regulate it. There are no things similar to what we have witnessed, correct? For instance, this area is an oil field, but the individuals working here are not the same group that started exploiting the Amazon. They told me that didn't exist before. There were no natives before. The natives came after. Exploitations were there, right?
Correct. We appreciate Engineer Carlos Herrera Descalzi, ex-Energy and Mines Minister, for being part of our discussion. Up next, we have Iván Arenas talking about the intersection of mining and society.
In recent days, we have learned that the budgets for what is called the Unified Command Strategy have not been renewed. Of Patas, in the district of Patas to be exact. Remember that there has been a unified command for months where the public ministry collaborates, other state institutions along with the national police and the armed forces. That only happens in the Patas district. If these budgets are not renewed, it is evident that criminal gangs will return. It is evident that illegal mining will also return. And it is also evident that informal mining will continue to coexist with illegal mining. In any case, we will be keeping an eye on what happens there. However, a territorial vision of the issue is needed. Because although only the Patas district has been declared in an emergency, there what actually exists is a corridor of illegal economies. There's illegal mining, there's arms trafficking, and there's drug trafficking. All of that is the corridor of illegal economies along the Marañón. The Marañón River unifies all of that, so we must now speak of an illegal economies corridor. In addition to budgets, there is a need for a shift in approach as well in order to thrive. The corridor approach, it is no longer just the Patas district, but the entire corridor that brings together the high areas of the provinces of the Liberteña Highlands. That's called the economic corridor, in such a way that just as the state allocates budgets, it's necessary to return towards an approach involving economic corridors, specifically illegal economic corridors. This instance concerns the corridor of the illegal economies along the Marañón River. We will continue discussing this and other matters in the coming weeks.
Don't forget Expo Mina, Peru 2026. It's coming soon from the 9th to the 11th of September at the Jockey Club Convention Center as always. The most important mining event of this year. Find all the details concerning Expo Mina to secure your stand, join the conversations, and attend the meetings, ensuring your participation in the event. The very interesting business rounds that will be presented. Our two guests were also significant, Miguel, still hold much importance. Both Luis Miguel Castilla, your namesake, and engineer Carlos Herrera Descalzi. In the midst of this ongoing political crisis, it is comforting to know that Peru will always have a glimmer of hope due to its strong macroeconomic fundamentals shining through the darkness.
Let's see what happens in the coming days with this economic and political instability that unfortunately continues and doesn't let up.
Yes, that's correct. My name is Cesar Campos, and together with Miguel Zaval, we have been the hosts of this program. We look forward to seeing you again next week on the Willix television channel, just like always.